Hello, everyone. It's Saturday. That makes us chat with Mac. We're glad to have you. For those of you that are new to what we do, well, actually, let me go back. For those of you that watch us, we thank you each and every week. Spread the word. Let people know about what we do. We love what we do every weekend, talking about all things technology. And for those of you that are new, welcome, welcome, welcome. Subscribe to our channel. That really helps us, of course, with all the YouTube algorithms and all that good stuff. So subscribe, spread the word, and let people what we're doing. Let people know what we're doing. We appreciate it. Nadine, how's the weekend, sir?
Oh, great. Yeah, it helps us out. Like when people, I was of the mindset, hey, if don't ask for subscriptions, right? If I like it, I'll subscribe. But it is true that YouTube's algorithm prefers videos that are liked or subscribed to.
Yep.
So it helps people find these types of videos the more people like them and subscribe. And so that's why we're trying to say that. It ultimately helps us out. Now we don't put ads or we don't charge or anything. We love what we do. It's not about that, but it's just a matter of so that others can find us easier.
Yep.
So Mac, what are we going to talk about today?
So part two, what management needs to do and know about cybersecurity. We did it last week.
Yep.
You gave people especially management, things that they need to look out for, things that could be potential issues. So we want to do a part two of that, especially since we're coming up to the end of Q4, going into Q1, and people are going to probably be making changes. There are probably going to be changes on the horizon. What are some things they want to look up? Excuse me.
Yeah, so I think last time we talked about how, what management needs to do about cybersecurity. And then today we're going to talk about how management can guide the conversation around security, because we hear this a lot from C-level officers that, hey, we want to do more around security because we definitely don't want to have a breach. We want to make sure that everything we're doing is doing it the right way, but how do we convey that to everybody in the company, right? How do we disseminate that information throughout the company? So what we're going to talk about today will help us out a little bit there. So let me share my screen. I'm going to put a few things, pointers that will help management talk to everybody in the organization about cybersecurity, incident response, and being better prepared. Basically making sure that their teams are better prepared. And then we will talk about, some of the things that you can do and what some of these pointers mean. So let me share my screen real quick. I have it up here, and just a few notes that you can see here. So, the starting thing is going to be determine when executive leadership needs to be notified. Now, here's the thing. The reason why you want to determine that is you don't want to have a lot of information flowing up to the executive suite on every little thing that happens regarding security, right? Because if you have a flood of information, important nuggets are going to get lost. So you need to set those boundaries, like, at what level do teams disseminate this information up the chain and it goes up into the executive suites. So, for example, you may not want to know when somebody clicks a link in an email, that they shouldn't have clicked. They clicked it, big deal. It almost happens every day. But you probably want to know if somebody's credentials got stolen. So if you have confirmation of somebody's credentials getting breached, stolen, you want to know about it. Now, for small business, it's not there's not a legal requirement. But for bigger companies, publicly traded companies, there is a requirement to reveal that information if there is a breach. And I've seen both sides of this coin, right? Like in public companies, I've had management tell us that, hey, if there is a breach, we do not want to know. And my question was, well, why wouldn't you want to know? Because if we know, we have to reveal it, we have to make it public. And so that's why we don't want to know. So that's not how you want to do it. That's not the right way to do it, right? The thing is to make sure that you have everything in place to avoid having the breach. But if it does happen, follow the guidelines. It's always better to get ahead of it. If you had a breach because of a broken process, it's better to say, hey, we screwed up, we're sorry, we're doing it better, and this is what we're doing, as opposed to trying to hide it, brush it under the rug, and then it eventually it gets out anyway, and it does more damage that way, right? So that's the thing. You want to have those limitations around what information flows into the C-level suite. And you also want to know what level of risk you are at. So I know a lot of times companies will have like a chart, like a 1 to 10, and then they'll have, and it could be 1 to 5, 1 to 10, whatever have you. So that way you have a good indicator of where the risk is, and that, there's usually there is a security officer that's responsible for determining where the risk is. So the executive knows, hey, today if the risk is 1 versus a 5, okay, we're doing better. But if as it starts to creep up towards the 5, we need to do something. What are we not doing right? Why are we behind the curve? We need to be ahead of it, right? So that's something that you want to put into place. Now, understanding the level of risk is one thing, but understanding the impact of that risk on the business is another. So management needs to make decisions based on what the impact of a certain risk is going to be on the business. So, for example, if there is a risk that, a risk to customers, management will need to deal with that differently, as opposed to a risk to partners or vendors. Management will need to deal with that risk differently. So these kind of things, the executive suite needs to know, what the impact is going to be for the company. As part of the planning process, pretty much every company out there needs to have a plan how you're going to address the risks, right? So now we're not talking about an incident response plan. We're talking about how to address identified risks. So boom hasn't happened yet, right? So boom is when the incident actually happens. So this is all, we're doing all this before the boom, right? So if you've identified the risks, you've identified what the impact is going to be on the company, next you want to have a plan to address those risks to minimize the fallout, so to say, right? And of course, cybersecurity, you want to have training for everybody in the organization. Now, there's a couple of things on training. You want to have training, you want to keep some metrics around training, right? I've seen it a lot of times where, companies will put some kind of training in there and then never look back, never look at, and slowly, I can almost guarantee it, slowly over time, people will get used to it. They will start not participating in the training. And that happens. So that's why somebody needs to be in charge of making sure that the training you have in place, which the company's paying somebody for, that people are actually attending that training and benefiting from that training. You want to make sure that you are mitigating insider threats. Pretty straightforward. I've heard from people that, hey, no, we don't have any insider threats. We hire good people. Look, let me tell you this. Nobody goes out to hire bad people. Everybody hires good people, but bad things still happen.
Yeah.
And that's why you want to make sure that you have measures in place to mitigate insider threats. How is your cybersecurity program compared with the industry standard? So there's an ideal situation, there's a standard situation, right? So first there's the ideal situation, then there is the industry standard, and you may be farther down. So we want to make sure how that compares with the industry standard. If you can't measure something, you cannot control it. We all know this, right? So make sure you have some good metrics in place that mean something, not metrics just for the sake of metrics. And I do that sometimes. I'll collect metrics just for the sake of collecting metrics because it may help me down the line in the future. But collect metrics that are measurable and that mean something. So things that you can take action on, things that you can control, that you can make a change on, that you can move the needle on. A very important thing is, a lot of companies have incident response plans and what they're going to do and all of that, but they never rehearse them. They never exercise them. Now, I know for some of the compliance requirements, you have to go through an exercise of, some kind of a security exercise. You have to do it. So make sure that you have maybe an annual plan to exercise through what your plans are. So every department, every role knows what they need to do when it happens. The worst time to try to exercise your plan is when the actual issue happens, right? That's almost like there's a hurricane and now you're trying to draw out what the exit routes are going to be on the freeways. That's not going to work, right? You have to get those exit routes lined up beforehand. And the reason I give the example of hurricane is because down here in Texas or down near Houston, people kind of relate to that, right? So you want to exercise your plans. You need to make sure that everybody, multiple departments, everybody's on board with those plans. A lot of times I've seen it to where, companies have IT departments and they just shove it off to their IT department. Nobody else even knows about these plans. It's only IT that knows these plans. That doesn't help anybody, right? The breach is going to happen at any department. It can happen up the chain, down the chain, anywhere. So everybody needs to be part of those plans. Everybody needs to have a role to play in this security field. And finally, you need to be prepared to work with agencies, external third parties. So you need to be able to work with your breach coach when a breach does happen. Your insurance provider, your cybersecurity insurance provider can probably direct you where to get breach coaches, where to, what the legal is going to be. If you have your own internal legal department, they're probably going to handle that, or you might have a third party that comes in and handles that. So all these things need to be in place, and then you need to make sure when you exercise these things that your team knows how to work with the third parties and who these third parties are. So, for example, if a breach does happen and somebody's supposed to report the breach to a breach coach, if they don't even know who the breach coach is, what are they going to do? Right? So all these things need to be written down, and this written plan then can go to different departments, department managers, employees, all the way down. So everybody knows what to do when there is an issue that happens. And it's only a matter of time. It is going to happen. Always assume breach, and then plan from there.
Yep.
And that's what we always talk about is assume breach. So this is all you want to do before the boom. This is to what we call the left of boom. There is a whole nother thing that you do to the right of boom. And we may make another video on what happens to the right of boom. And we may talk about this in the future, but this is just to get you prepared till the point of boom. It's all to the left of boom.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, as always, you might want something more, a little bit more detailed. Reach out to us. You can email me, Mac@PC.Solutions.Net, so we can get you on the Deem schedule, so you can have a more detailed, more drilled down understanding of your cybersecurity. And quite honestly, just from my cause, I know a lot of small businesses need this because they don't have it. I know Nadeem goes on quite a bit of meetings with the CEOs, and they don't have a clue.
Yeah, and it's not that hard. So when people think about security, they're like, oh man, another thing, another plan. I got to do this. I got to go through it. Hey, we got templates. You can take one of our templates, make it your own. Yep. Minor tweaks, doesn't take that long. It seems daunting, but it's not. We make it easy, right? It's almost like, you don't have to bake this cookie from scratch. You just take it out of the wrapper, shove it in the oven, and after 15 minutes, it's ready.
I like that analogy.
So of course, the question then is, what do we bring to the table? the recipe to that cookie. So
there it is.
I think with that, Mac, we'll call it a day. It's been about, I think, 20 minutes.
Yep.
Good short video.
Yep.
And, maybe one day we'll do to the right of boom kind of talk. What happens when you do have that incident, what to do.
Yep.
So everybody with that, have a great day. Be safe out there. Mac, you have a wonderful weekend.
You too, sir. Everybody have a good one. See you next week.